this is the polar opposites from my generation to new generation. I would watch the clip and work out why the bit that didn't work was wrong. They'll watch the clip and work out why the bit that worked, take it out and only focus on that. So their attention goes on the bit that works. My attention goes on the bit that doesn't work. And I hope there are new comedians listening to this. No. I put out the bit that works and I watch the rest of it. But, taking out the best and focusing on that is very dangerous if that's all you do.
Greetings, everyone. Come on in and have a seat up front for the Funny Muscle Podcast. If you're here, then you're looking to learn how to create laughs like a pro. So please help me welcome to the stage your co-host to help you do that, economics professor and open micer Chris Stifler and comedian turned author Mike Lucas.
Adam Bloom, ladies and gentlemen. There he is. Oh, there he is.
Hey.
Yeah, all right.
Yes.
So who's who?
Hey, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stifler.
Nice to meet you both.
Stifler is the only one on the podcast with hair, so it's easy to remember. Yep.
So first of all, thank you for having me. Nice to meet you both.
Yeah, man. We're so excited to have you on, Adam.
Have you read the book as well, Mike?
I read the free part that's available on Amazon. And
that's the best bit.
I'm don't hold it against me. If it doesn't have a lot of pictures in it, I'm not really fond of the book, but I'm kidding.
Well, no, it's funny you mentioned that because a friend of mine called Ian Rowland, who's a magician who's ghostwritten a lot of books and produced a lot of books and written books, said to me, you got to have illustrations because if you flick through, I mean, it's not in bookshops actually, but let's say you bought it and flicked through 318 pages and then no pictures, it's just intimidating because it's text, it's 100,000 words. So one picture per chapter is almost like a little softener for your eyes, So then you go, oh, it's not all text. So it's like, almost like a commercial break. So I did that specifically because a friend said it's less intimidating. But what was nice was it was also good to illustrate some points with, Yeah. I was going to say picture paints 1,000 words, but there were words. But, a cartoon with a mum reading to the boy and what's said can sometimes summarize an entire chapter.
Good point. I think next time, your next book, maybe some ones that I can color, some books that I can color. Or some pictures that I can feel like I'm participating in. It's good. I like the approach you took, which is it's a real like the sort of the wave of the bits. Like the you're really focused on how it sounds and how it comes across and the balance between sides and all that. So I really dig that. Like it takes a real experienced comedian to understand that part of it.
Right. I mean, the seesaw was, that was the first chapter I wrote. And the reason I kept it at the front rather than, you think maybe 8 months in you jiggle it around. But because that's where I started, there was something, because that was instinctively the first thing I wanted to show. I thought that should stay as the first thing I wanted to share. Because you can spend ages analyzing the book. But the fact that I sat down and went, I want to talk about the seesaw meant that was an important thing to me because I've never, and this, I hope this doesn't sound too, boastful, but I've never heard one person ever acknowledge that having more syllables on one side of a pause than the other. I haven't apart from my mum, who told me when I was a kid that I mean that's the same thing, isn't it? Because there's a pause in your name, Adam Bloom. That Stephen King. The author. If it was Steve King, it wouldn't have the same impact, would it? Stephen King. So that a friend of mine brought that up, and also the rim shot. A rim shot's 2-1. And a rim shot wouldn't work if it was 2-2. A rim shot wouldn't work. Boom, boom. It doesn't work. Or went boom. And then turn around and my mum fell over. Boom. Doesn't work.
Right.
Boom, boom. It's almost like they're adding a seesaw just in case you didn't.
Yeah.
Do you think an editor would have said that shouldn't be your first chapter? Like if you didn't kind of do it your way?
I don't know because I did. I mean, you obviously know I didn't have an editor then.
Well, I just know you self-published, and I've listened to some of your other podcasts.
Oh, right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. An editor might. The thing is, this is the thing about self-publishing is that someone can know more about books than you, but they don't know more about comedy than you. So they'll go, "Oh, it's very important that the first chapter is palatable, so you don't put them off." And I mean, that's what they might say, and they might be right. But my gut told me that if you open with something that's going to make every single comedian and non-comedian go, "Wow." That's a good start to a book. And it's the free chapter on Amazon. So, sometimes I find sometimes people when you work, I mean, there's a joke in the industry. How many TV producers does it take to change a light bulb? Does it have to be a light bulb? Right. So that kind of sums up that there are people. So, I mean, God almighty, I took the advice about the illustrations from someone who'd written a book. I took feedback from 35 people on what they felt could have been clearer. One friend, Hattie Preston, said the Bloom Pops, because Bloom Pops and Word Smuggling, chapter 2 and 3, were one chapter. And she said, these are 2 points. Now, I didn't see that. She's 100% right. So I like the idea of taking advice off comedians, because 30 people's advice is going to add up to a lot of wisdom. And the reason I didn't have an editor was I was trying to make it on a low budget as well. It wasn't just because I'm arrogant and think I know best. It was also, but the whole book cost £1,200, including cover design, illustrations, and proofreading. £1,200 on Amazon for £1,200.
Yeah.
So you could spend that probably on editors.
Do you worry that there's going to be any typos or
there were typos. This right now arrived today. This is the 14th version of the book. So when I see someone's book, I can pick it up, I can turn to 1 page, maximum 2, and work out within a few weeks, maybe a month, when they bought it. So the first version is embarrassingly full of typos.
Yeah.
And that's not a discredit to my proofreader. There are very famous books with typos in them, but there must have been 25 typos. And then over people, guy in Australia called John Fredericks, he gets a credit in the book. A female comedian called Hajar Woodland, she gets a credit in the book, because I've added credits for people who've given me so much feedback about typos that they had to get but there's some people have an eye for them. You can miss a typo. I mean, a friend sends you a text and they say, oh, sorry, I mean proper T, not properly. You didn't see it because your brain knows roughly what they're saying, and you miss, it doesn't matter. But no one wants a book with typos in it. So it's great. But there are things like, I mean, I'm going to bore you with it, but there's there's 2 illustrations. So the one here of the girls, the only one that's got graphics, it fades out. So the girls here, you want to get paid? 166. How are you doing it? So 166. So it's the chapter creating new material. You got page 166?
I don't have.
He's just learning his numbers, so.
It's 166.
Yeah, exactly. But if you find the picture of the girls, see at the bottom of the page they fade out. Look at the image of the girls, they fade out. That doesn't work with text underneath it, I've discovered, because the fade goes to nothing. If it goes to nothing, then there's writing. It just looks weird. It fades, then there's words. So there we are. So all the ones with the girls, there's no text underneath exactly. It just doesn't look quite right. And the ones with the silhouette of an audience, they look great with text underneath them because it's a flat line and a flat line, or at the bottom of a page as a board. They don't look good at the end of a chapter with a black gap underneath them. Well, that's 13. That's 13 images I had to move around. And that was like because my obsessive nature, I was like, I need to find more to do. It can't be perfect. So once I got all the typos out and reworded things to make them clearer, and a few repetitions, 1 chapter ended on the word wonderful, 1 chapter began with the word wonderful in the last and first sentence. So I changed it to incredible, because it does. When you finish a chapter, you don't look at what you wrote on the next one, because you wrote it months before. So little things like that. But, if someone read the first book and their friend had the most recent one, it doesn't matter, because the content's identical. You're not going to go, yeah, I learned a lot about comedy, but those girls' legs faded out and there was text underneath them. It doesn't matter, but it matters to me, right? In your home, you touch up a little mark behind the sofa, a little, where there's a scratch, you might touch the paint up, but no one's going to notice it because there's a plant there, It's just about how much you want to. But anyway, it's no coincidence a book about detail is written by someone who's written 14 edits of the same book.
Now, what got you to write the book in the first place? I mean, you've been a comic for quite a while, and obviously you've accumulated a lot of that inside knowledge from writing and performing. And what made you want to just suddenly put it down in a book?
So, well, there was a few. So first of all, when my dad died, I was in a little bit of a rut. So that was a fresh start the next year. And the other thing was I was drinking quite a lot. And it's quite on the 30th of December, I saw my kids quite late for Christmas, and they bought me a nice bottle of whiskey that, their mum chose it. They're 11 and 14. Their mum bought it. And my 11-year-old handed me this bottle of whiskey, and I said something, actually, looking back, was quite rude. I said, oh, thanks, it's beautiful, but I'm trying to drink less. And if you say it to an adult, it's almost like, oh, I'll take it back then if you're going to be ungrateful, right? but you can be honest with an 11-year-old about a drink she didn't buy herself. So I said, oh, thanks. I said, it's beautiful, but I'm actually trying to drink less. She went, oh, you can give up for your New Year's revolution. Isn't that lovely? Lovely typo. And what's lovely is the childhood optimist. She just went, okay, well, let's do a good thing. You can drink it now and then stop, which is perfect. And I did. But not only did I drink it and then stop, I drank it that same day. I drank a decent bottle of whiskey in one day. Now, you have a good bottle of whiskey, you're supposed to sip it here and there, sip it here and there. I'm not a quality, I buy normal, stuff. I mix it with orange juice anyway. So I don't need a good whiskey. But when I realized in one day I drank a full 70 centiliter bottle of whiskey, I was like, you're drinking a lot. So I gave up drinking for New Year on the 31st. It's normally on the 1st of January. So New Year's Eve, I went, this is not good. And then New Year's Day, I woke up with my no hangover because I went to bed early after my New Year's Eve gig. It was like, right, new start, fresh head. My friend A.D. Lloyd, who has to be credited here, told me again and again and again, you're a walking book, you're a walking book. He's not even a comedian, he's a magician. You're a walking book, you're a walking book. And then he told people, oh, Adam's going to write a book. He did the most clever thing. He kept telling me, write a book, write a book. Have you started your book yet, Adam? Have you started your book yet, Adam? And then one day, have you heard of Clubhouse? It's a social media app, audio only social media. Do you know it?
I don't know it.
No, okay. So the people who are into it are obsessed with it. But it's basically live chat rooms. And during lockdown, it became huge because people could talk at home. It looks like a Zoom meeting on your phone when everyone's got a still image. No, it's all audio only. But we were in a room and Erica James was there, who wrote 50 Shades of Grey, sold 165 million books. Yeah. We got quite pally with her during lockdown because she was just hanging around like we were. And AD said, Adam's writing a book, everyone, which was so clever because now he's telling them, I've got to do it because otherwise a week later they'll go, how's your book coming on? Go, oh, I didn't write it. But I could have said, no, I'm not, AD, don't be stupid. But I thought, okay, I know what he's doing. And the first human being in the world who said, what's your book about, was the author of 50 Shades of Grey. One of the most successful books in history. Just a lovely omen. And she's been very supportive. Actually, she tweeted about it when I released the book. She said, happy book day, and put a link to my book. Yeah, it's lovely. Lovely, yeah. I'm finding out who, that there are comedians who've been very, very supportive, and the ones who, who will tweet it to 1 million people. And it's interesting. A guy in India did a story, never heard of him before. He liked my book. He contacted me. And he did a story to 2.9 million people in India, or predominantly India. And that week, I sold 3 books in India. 2.9 million people. Yeah.
Figure. Well, now, one thing I noticed about your thing, I know we don't have to only talk about your book, but it's very interesting. You have a lot of reviews. How did you get so many reviews going? What, did you have a trick?
No, I didn't have a trick. I mean, occasionally, if someone DM'd me and said, I love your book, I would say, oh, feel free to give it a review. But no, 95% of the people who reviewed it, I haven't met before. No. And we just yesterday or this morning hit 200 reviews in the UK.
Yeah, nice. That's great. I mean, that's so helpful. When people show up to your Amazon page, it's really helpful for them to see that other people have enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's only had 1 review. People have clicked 4s, they just clicked 4. It's only had 1 review that was not a 5, and that was in Germany. It was a 2. And he said, it doesn't teach you to develop a persona. And it's like, it's an advanced book, and it only says the chapters on writing are useful when you're a beginner. I mean, they're all useful when you're a beginner, but it makes it very clear. This is not for beginners.
Right.
And so for someone to write that down was like an arrow in my heart. It's like, mate. And also, if you're going to take time to, the back page says, and the bio, the 17 chapters on writing will be useful for beginners. That inadvertently says the rest of it's not for beginners.
Right.
But the beautiful thing is, beginners are loving it, because there's a magazine in England called Just 17. It's a girls' magazine. Got a girl on the front cover with a handbag or whatever, fashionable clothes. And the target market is 14-year-olds, because they go, I want to know what 17-year-olds are doing. What will I be doing in 3 years? They want to peek into their future. So that was my philosophy for the book. I write a book for professional comedians, but if you were just starting out and you saw 2 books in a row next to each other, one of them said How to Become a Comedian, one of them said In-Depth Guide, I would go, give me that one. I want to know what I'm doing in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. So only one person has criticized it for not being, not dealing with the basics, which is stupid because it says it doesn't.
It's like you can do a show for 1,000 people and 999 people clap, love it, laugh, love, and one guy says, "Eh," and that's all
Yeah.
you're talking to. You're like talking. What? Why?
Yeah. And that's the guy whose review I printed on my wall.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah. That's the guy that spurns me forward to do better because I'll get 1,000. I'll get 100%. You'll see.
you never had a teacher at professor evaluations at the end of the semester, and you get one bad one out of 100, and you're like, you
Is
try
that
to
what
figure out
you
which.
you're an economics guy, right?
Yes, yep, economics professor.
Oh wow, you're a professor.
Yep.
You're
And
like a
we each
sports
have, we each
guy.
have a published book on Amazon, so that's why we're kind of curious on some of your advertising strategies and your writing strategies.
Well, I spent £3,200 on adverts on Amazon on Instagram, and about £2,500 on Amazon promotion, so that my book comes up at the top when you search books. And I've got a $20 a day bill from Amazon, which is a lot. That's
Yeah.
America, that's US. But my
It
book
adds
sells
up.
in England. But I'm semi-known over here, and I'm well known within my industry. I'm very well known within my industry, in a little industry. So when my book came out, everyone in England bought it. I mean, as in a lot of comedians. I had 103 Kindle pre-sales. So people were excited about my book just hearing through word of mouth. This is why I've got to advertise in America, because I've got to. It's like they call it the sneeze effect, where like the pandemic, you go just So I'm very happy to lose. I'm spending pretty much as I'm making in America on making sure they see it, because all I care is that they buy it, and then when I can stop advertising, they'll be out there spreading and spreading. It's such a learning curve. I've learned that faded drawings don't go next to print, and I've learned that advertising on Amazon pays off, because my book was 34th. If you touch stand-up comedy book, my book was 34th on the list. No one's going to scroll down that far.
Yeah. They go to the top 25, and then you have to go to the next page to see 26
Yeah.
50. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing I'd go through 9-10 books if I was looking for a book.
Yeah. Well, so walk us back a little bit. I noticed you did done a lot of festivals. And by the way, I got to say, what is it? Louis C.K. says you can tell a confident man by someone who wears white pants. And I watched you on the Brighton Festival wear like almost white pants and a shirt that could easily show sweat stains, and you went out there and blew it away, man. It was great.
Oh, cheers.
Yeah. It was fun to watch you. I have a couple questions. Like, you have a rapid fire delivery, and I love that, but a lot of newer comedians try to do that, and the problem that they seem to face is that they don't know where their laughs are, so they end up stepping on their laughs. There's a rhythm going, and you are like, you seem to know your material so well that you know where the laughs come, and then you know how to pause at the right moment, and then bam, you're off and running again. What is that, something that you developed, or is that just a natural part of your humor?
I mean, comedians are made, right? Funny people are born, comedians definitely made. I would have got better at that. I think instinctively. I remember my first gig. I was hearing the laughs and going, like, I imagined myself with a baseball bat in my first gig, and I was like, okay, there's the ding now and then, boom. So my timing probably was quite natural. But when you do new material, you don't know where the laughs are, and you'll find suddenly they laugh at the bit that was a setup and not the punchline. You go, oh my god! And then retrospective, it's a lot easier to retrospectively work out why something's funny. Once the audience has told you, go, oh, that line's funny because that's the observation. To me, that was a setup. So you're trying a new bit, then you are getting the laughs on the wrong, and you're talking, they go, bum, you laugh, they laugh, you start to talk, you go, I didn't know they're going to laugh there. And that can be a bit messy, but but no, I very much know when to pause. And it's all very well going, he speaks really fast. I know when to wait, and I also know when to pause before information needs to be absorbed. Yeah. So I'm not gonna. There's no, there's no such thing.
No.
There's no such thing. But I don't know anyone who talks faster than me on stage, and I think it would be a risk if you talk much faster than me. But yeah, it's knowing when to pause. And also, if you're going this speed and you pause for a tenth of a second, that's percentage-wise of the speed of going a proper pause. That's a pause, right? So people go, "Oh, he doesn't stop." I go, "Oh no, I definitely do."
Oh, you do?
And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It was well done. It was I was impressed that you were able to do that because that's a difficult, that's a tap dancer or like one of those Irish step dancers, knowing exactly where
oh, what's it called?
yeah.
What's it called?
Oh, I think step dancing. I think it's
What's the actual
oh,
Michael
Michael Flatley's
Flatley?
Riverdance.
Riverdance, yeah, right,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, it's huge, wasn't it? It's huge.
Oh my God, that was such a phase. Well, okay, so our podcast is for newer comedians. We're trying to help people sort of begin. I did comedy for 24 years before I retired to raise my kids, and Chris has kind of approached me and said, "Hey, can you walk me through some of this stand-up comedy stuff, and then we can record it for a podcast, and hopefully it'll be helpful for other people that are learning." So that's kind of the gist of what we try to do here. Is it's not necessarily for laughs. It's not necessarily for experienced comedians, but for people who are really trying to develop their stuff and give them tips and pointers. So could you give some types of pointers that you might find helpful when you were starting out, something that you might think that a newer comedian would take to that would help, like some takeaways?
Well, the most significant change I've noticed with new comedians today is they don't watch the whole show. They do their show and they leave. This is in England. And I'm stunned because when I was new, on my night off, I'd go and watch comedy.
Yeah.
Just absorb it in. Look at people's techniques. Understand why the pros are doing well. Why is someone doing well the second they get to the mic and someone else not?
Yeah.
So this isn't about plagiarism. This is about technique and working out what people are doing right. So in 1 week, I counted 6 new comedians who didn't stay and watch me close the show and 1 who did. And the 1 who did was the best one. No coincidence.
No.
So this sense of, I don't know, we're more detached as a society. We self-service our stuff in the supermarket. I don't know if you do over here, but we beep, put our stuff away. Do you do that over there?
Yeah.
Who tricked us into doing that?
The same person that tricked us into pumping our own gas.
Oh, right. But yeah, at least that's one action. But that kind of deep, and having to wait while your alcohol's being validated and all that stuff, and looking like a thief because you tapped a bag with your finger. So we got that going on. We watch TV at our own time. We don't go, oh, it's 9 o'clock, that show's on. We watch on Netflix. So we're living quite insular lives. And I think that's part of it. I don't think it's the reason, but it's part of it. We're living quite insular lives. So people go, I've done my comedy and I'm going. And it's like, so there's probably less of a sense of community now than there was before. But just because you're not part of a community doesn't mean you can't stand at the back of the room watching the show. So I would say watch the show. And, you can go, oh, I could watch stand up when I get home. Well, first of all, the clips on TV are not going to be as gritty because there's going to be stuff that goes hecklers that win or whatever. But more importantly, watching your show it's the show you've just done. So if let's say you have an average show, and then you watch a pro go on after you and do something that connects the room, you go, they did that to make everyone get on board. You can't watch that you can watch a million clips of shows where comedians lost the crowd and got them, or another comedian did better than a comedian before them. But it's not your show. It's not that actual show. So for me to actually turn your back and walk out of a venue, so you're at comedy, you're in a comedy club and you're choosing to leave. I mean, you're there. It's 40, you're in the club and you're going
in front of those same people.
In front of those same people. So what should I do now? I think I'll go home. And it's like, when I was doing the opposite, I was going from home to a club. It's like, you got in free because you're working and you're leaving and you're at a club going, I'm choosing to get away from comedy now. And I find that staggering. And you go, you've got older people, I don't understand the young people today. I can't think of one reason why a comedian should leave the show. I mean, a lot of them are going home to put subtitles on and get it on Instagram. Could that wait an hour?
Right. That's good. Yeah. And do you record your sets? Do you at this point?
Really? I don't. No. Shall I elaborate?
Well, one of the things that we always tell new comedians is to tape your set, and then that way you have something for, like, because you're probably on stage just about every night of the week if you're doing it right. And these newer comedians are on stage, 5 minutes a week, maybe.
Oh yeah, sure, no, sure.
Yeah. So to me, with all that time in between, when they have no stage time, that's their way to look at what they've done and sort of reassess.
Absolutely. To clarify why I shook my head for me, I'm gigging. If I listen to every gig, last week I did 2 gigs Friday, 2 gigs Saturday. I gig Monday, I think I gigged Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So I did like 6, 7 gigs. So I wouldn't want to listen to the same thing again and again. I've already said the same thing again and again. But yeah, as a new comedian, record your gigs. I don't like watching myself on video. I've got little idiosyncrasies. I do this with my hands. I flip my hands back my head when I'm improvising. I don't know I'm doing it. People do an impression. They go, this is me. Like, this is people's impression of me, waving my hand around my head. I don't know I'm doing it. I don't want to watch it enough to know when I'm doing it to start doing it consciously. So I don't watch myself visually. But yes, video your gigs and definitely audio record your gigs. And if you are comfortable watching yourself and it doesn't affect your performance next time, because I've got quirks. I analyze every word of my set, but I don't analyze my movement because they're natural. That's the child in me just bursting out. But yes, absolutely, couldn't agree more. But if you're doing 7 gigs a week, to listen back to those 7 gigs a week would drive you mad. But yeah, when you're new, I mean, you know, and when I do new material, I record it because I'll do an ad lib that I don't remember. I'll come off stage sometimes and go, what did I just say after the bus stop? What did I just say? Because it came out, it's perfect. You know, if you're improvising with the audience, then that material's predominantly gone forever. If it's about someone's Batman hat or whatever. But if you're improvising around your own material, that's all stuff that will stay in and keep. Yeah, I did an ad lib the other day. It was perfect. And as in, it sounded like a crafted joke around the material I was doing. Went on the next night, did it exactly the same, worked just the same. Great, got a new joke. Wonderful. So yeah, from recording yourself, there's endless reason to record yourself. Yes. Yeah. And then and the new people who want to put it online, record yourself, watch it, analyze it. But this is what worries me. They'll watch it to try and get the 15-second clip, but they won't. Here we go. This is the polar opposites from my generation to new generation. I would watch the clip and work out why the bit that didn't work was wrong. They'll watch the clip and work out why the bit that worked, take it out and only focus on that. So their attention goes on the bit that works. My attention goes on the bit that doesn't work. And I hope there are new comedians listening to this. No. I put out the bit that works and I watch the rest of it. But, you know, taking out the best and focusing on that is very dangerous if that's all you do, because all you end up being is a really good 15-second comedian. You know, we work towards an hour. At the Edinburgh Festival, I did my first hour 2.5 years in. So I did my first hour of comedy 2 years in. The next year I did another one. The next year I did another one. The next year another one. So 5.5 years in, I'd done 4 one-man shows. And that did not happen from focusing on the best 15 seconds of a 20-minute gig. It happened on focusing on the 15 seconds that didn't work. So yeah, please, people, get your 15 seconds and look at the bits that you wouldn't put on Instagram. Hey, there you go. There's a nice theory. Yeah. Look at the bits you wouldn't put up.
Yeah, and figure out what it is about them that fell short and why. Yeah, and that goes back to a lot of your seesaw stuff and a lot of your balance stuff, a lot of where you put your punchlines and all that. And sometimes you don't know where the right word is at the end of your bit until you watch people tell you that it's.
Yeah. But look, new people here, I want you to treat it like an art and a craft and really put your heart into it.
You know, when you come up with a new material, could you walk us through sort of how that goes for you? Every comedian's different. Some people it just pops in their head. Some people craft it.
So this is the myth about me, because I write for other people and I've written a book about writing. Everyone thinks I sit down to write, but they are so wrong. My writing comes walking down the street, talking to people, or on stage. So I say something funny in conversation. It goes through my little process. I mean, the main 3 questions: does it suit my voice? Could anyone have thought of it? And does it remind me of anything I've heard before? I'll say that again because there are 3 very important. Does it suit my voice? That's the most important one. If you say anything you think of that's funny, you won't have a style. Could anyone have thought of it? If it's obvious, then it's not going in. And does it remind me of anything I've heard before? And if you do stuff that you know reminds you of stuff that you've heard before, but it works, well, there are only 7 jokes in the world. Oh, it works. Your quality bar stays very low. So once those 3 questions go through my mind, I'll then take it on stage and I'll improvise around it. And the thing is about being on stage, the intensity of the adrenaline and the gun to your head that you got to be funny now means I work better under pressure like that. So my brain, let's say I can't get the right wording of the joke right. When I go on stage with it, my processor goes and finds the best word. So I actually do my best writing on stage when I have to get a sentence tweaked. So then I've already written down 3 words for the joke. I might go podcast economics guy, right? And then that's my reminder of what the joke is. And then when I go on stage and try it, I never write down the final word in because it's up there. It's in my head. So my 7 hours of Edinburgh one-man shows could literally be written on a piece of A4, 7 shows.
Wow.
And that's no exaggeration. Because and also I used initials as well. So I would do, I would do P. I mean, this is in the early days when my memory was better. I'm 53 now, but I was doing Edinburgh 25, and I had, my brain hadn't been battered by alcohol and life and rejection and pain. But I would put P. E would be podcast economics, or EP economics. So there would be a time when my show was a lot of letters. It would just be EP dash DBA dash. But that was, that was an unusual method, and I was acknowledged to be, I'm a little bit Rain Man like, right? And so that was how it was. So now I would put economics podcast. But the point I'm making is I will never write, I was on a podcast talking about comedy with an economics guy. I would never do that. But if I'm writing for somebody else, of course I have to do that, because I can't say to them, listen carefully. So I've got to write it down, right? So I write it all down for people. But then these are the methods for adding toppers. If you write down existing material, and Mike, you won't know this bit from the book, but if you write existing material down, it might seem laborious, and it is. But because your mind wanders, you'll think of new jokes on toppers, tags you call them, right? On top of it, what an economical time to write when you're just writing it out. So you go, because when you think about it, like, writing is a form of daydreaming. You're thinking, you're imagining. Well, when we daydream about whatever is in front of us. So if you're in a cafe and there's a kid outside with a balloon, you'll daydream about balloons. If you're writing your material, you'll daydream about your material. So really, the difference between an idea coming to you and an idea trying to find an idea is very similar, because you're just thinking. So you go, I'm going to write a joke today about chocolate, thinking about chocolate. That thing that makes you go there and think about a chocolate joke is the same thing that makes you, when you're typing a joke about chocolate, it's wandering. You're wandering, your mind's wandering. And all I'm doing is I'm forcing myself to wander around the thing I'm already typing. But then you walk away, let's say you've got 3 setups and 3 punchlines, and you walk away with 3 setups and 5 punchlines. That's pretty cool, right? Then you tweak it and go, I could shave some words off here. I was walking down the street with my friend. With my friend, we went into a cafe. My friend and I were in a cafe. There you go. I was walking down the street with my friend, and we saw this cafe. We went in. Do we need to know you saw the cafe? No. I was in a cafe with my friend, right? Unless part of the experience is spotting the person, then of course. But, you can get too robotic and you can trim stuff down so it doesn't sound human. So then you've got to, it's like CDs. Apparently they put a little hiss in CDs because they were too pure. Do you hear about this? When CDs came out, they were too pure, so it didn't sound right. That's what I heard anyway.
Well, yeah, I heard that too, because the record player would have that sort of, kind of like clicking and stuff from the dust and all that, and people miss that.
Well, it's a little bit like my book, because there were sometimes something went over to the next page that all I could to avoid something going to the next page just didn't look pretty. I put a paragraph break in before, shift it along, and then check every page thereafter, like Back to the Future. You go, something awful happens to your grandchildren, right? But what I would do, that kind of shift of going, I'm going to move it across. I'm wide now. The book looked perfect. But like, no, I quite liked it when it had typos because it looked real, looked human. So trimming down stuff. So typing it out, adding toppers, trimming it down, and then learning it. But when I do that for other people, it's great because people send me, 4 pages of stuff, and I just go, right, I copy and paste it, put it underneath it in red ink, and I just trim it. And I add toppers. I put funnier words. Repetition of words is so lazy when you got, final words of a punchline is a surprise. So if you've got a word you've already just used, you go, I was eating some soup the other day and and think about it. What about your soup? But we've heard that word. It's not new. There's something called bookending I talk about that you'll know about, that is rhythmic when repetition of a word happens. So go, same word, right? That works because it lands rhythmically. But when you, repetition of words on punchline, when I look over people's stuff, it's like tidying up a messy bedroom. I've got no. Now read that, like that. So if punchlines are about surprise, then surely a new word is a surprise in itself. So you go soup. What's some soup? Soup. A guy came up to me and said, "Yeah, what was 50p for the soup?" You go, "Well, we've heard the word soup 4 times now."
Right.
So
at least use broth.
Broth is a great word. So soup though.
Soup.
Here we go. Oh,
Yeah.
here we go. Then let's reverse it and say broth, 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 soup. Yeah,
Yeah.
because soup's a funny word, but yeah,
It's a funnier word, yeah, with the P.
yeah.
I love how you think about this stuff. It's it needs to be thought about this way. It's a craft, and it's there's so much to it. You said you're 53. When did you start? How old were you? And
23.
tell us about that first time.
So I talked about the baseball bat on stage. There was something because I heard one of the tennis champions, I don't know, Andy Murray, said he got to a stage in the final where he saw the balls coming towards him the sides of basketballs. He was so in the zone. Isn't that amazing? So that's how in the zone he was. So he couldn't miss the ball because they were that big. And that mind state of, I mean, it's stunning. Like we're looking at the best in the world under the most pressure they could be under. And they reacted like I'm talking about having a Gunji head on stage and being better because you've got the Gunji head. So, that's another thing. Some people work well under pressure and some people don't. And stand up, you have to thrive on pressure because, you start getting nervous on stage and sweating and look at the floor and you don't like the gig. It's like you're funny in a dressing room, but now you're a mess and probably isn't for you. Or certainly if it keeps going on for years, it's not for you. But my first gig went well. Before I tell you how well my sixth gig was a car crash, an absolute car crash. I shed a tear on the way home. They hated me. They couldn't have hated me more. So
why do you think that is?
I'm not saying. Well, it was a section of a. Okay, this is far more interesting than my good gig stories aren't good, right? Bad gig stories are better. But yeah. I was prefixing with this because so you knew I wasn't saying, oh yeah, I'm a natural because I had to learn. My first gig went well, which gave me the confidence to carry on. So when I had a bad gig, I was like, no, they're wrong. I'm good. So when which is a good delusion to have, there's a Public Enemy line, Chuck D. He said, I never heard the booze, I never drank booze. And I love the fact I ignored the booing. I never heard the booze and I never drank. So I said focused and sober and I ignored the negativity. I just love it. I never heard the booze, I never drank. Obviously it's within another, like a song called Time Bomb on their first album. It's a great track. But the sixth gig, I rang up a club called Up the Creek, which was famous for heckling. And I said, oh, can I come to a club? I was so new, I rang on a Sunday, which is already you're not supposed to do. He went, oh, come down tonight. We've got TV cameras in. Now, there's normally 2 or 3 open micers in the middle section. There were 6 in a row and I was the last one. And the crowd were being invited down from the previous week, the ones who heckled, given free drinks, and the cameras were 2 on the audience, 1 on the stage. It was lamb to the slaughter. We were being set up to fail in front of this audience and the TV cam crew. Now, one of the acts did well. One kind of got away with it and the rest of us did badly. In fact, two of us got destroyed. And one of the other guys who had a shaved head like me, he punched the MC after the show because the MC went on afterwards and criticized them. Kick him out when he's down. Right. He went up and punched him. And then the next morning I rang up and said, oh, hi, I'd like to book another gig. I did last night. She said, what's your name? I said, Adam Bloom. She said, oh, yeah, I heard it went a bit weird afterwards with my husband. And no, she heard it went a bit weird. I said, yeah, it was my first death. And she went, no, when you punched my husband. And I said, I can assure you I didn't. I really, it happened so quick. There's a guy with a shaved head, just standing at the bar, boom, was getting punched.
See, we're not all the same.
No. So I died to an audience who, I mean, I could have done well. It's not like it was impossible because other people did, but I was the 6th new act in a row, and the tension in the room was basically this lamb. I was a lamb to the slaughter. Yeah. So that was that. But the reason I mentioned that was because my first gig went well. It just took a couple of minutes to go well. The first joke died, but then I just kind of got my role going, and then they got in, and I could just feel like I remember thinking my whole life up till now makes sense. Like all I was doing was being a frustrated comedian up till this day. Like a gay person coming out of the closet and now going, oh, now I can relax. Now I've told everyone I'm gay. My family knows that I don't have to live a lie anymore. So it was almost living a lie in the sense that every time I was trying to be funny around people, that was just the performer in me dying to get out. I used to go, I was a cocktail bartender before. On my lunch break, I used to go and write poems and raps. I used to write raps, just my hand scribbling like this. Probably the most creative I've ever been is the 2 weeks before my first gig when it was bubbling inside me, going like that. I haven't felt that inspired since then because I'm gigging. I have an outlet, right? But this was, like a monk who'd never touched himself. So it was like years of build up. And then, yeah, so the first gig went well. And I always wonder what would have happened if it hadn't gone well, because what about the people who have a bad first gig and they go, yeah, what was I thinking? And then I might have that negative friend say, yeah, I told you weren't good. You know, a friend of mine went full time and his friend in the office went, give it 6 months, you'll be back in the office. I mean, what a horrible thing to say.
Right.
You know, don't surround yourself with those people. Get away from them, because they're projecting their small world onto you, right? Give it 6 months, you'll be back here. What, in an office job you don't like? So you want me to not like my life too? You know, I know plenty of people do like their lives in offices, but my point was he was dragging him back. Yeah, give it 6 months. Why would you ever say to a friend, give it 6 months, you'll be back here?
Well, he's projecting his own fear and his own insecurity on
Absolutely.
somebody. He's not a friend anyways.
No, not a proper friend, no. So so I always wonder what would happen if it had gone badly. And I like to think the fighter in me would get back up. Yeah. But, you know, if you get knocked out your first second in the ring, you might wonder if boxing's not for you, right?
Yeah.
So thank God that, you know, they call it beginner's luck, don't they? And I suppose I had beginner's luck. But the feeling on stage of, you know, and also when your first gigs, the unusual thing about your first gig is not only do you not know if you can do it, it's all brand new material. Like, that's the most new material I've done in one night.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally never have been done before. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, it's kind of like when you're a new golfer, and you have a good 18th hole. It makes you want to come back, even if the first 17 kind of sucks.
Oh, really? Are you a golfer?
No, I've tried. I did a whole bit about how horrible I am. So,
yeah, I'm curious if you watched your first set, was your comedy persona way different than it is now?
Yeah, it was more shouty. So I wore all black, which is the only color I would never wear. And I was shouty and I was intense. I mean, I'm always intense, but I'm playfully intense. I didn't smile once. I was emulating my hero, who was Ben Elton, who's one of my heroes. So I mentioned this in the book, that it's okay to emulate your heroes when you start, to give you the confidence to get up there. But first, it has to be your material, and then you've got to shed your skin and then be you. But yeah, I was doing his style. And, you know, Eddie Murphy talks about it in Raw, that he was doing Richard Pryor. It was my own material, but I was doing Richard Pryor. And it was great. He did a routine, perfect impression of Richard Pryor, about going to the toilet. And it was lovely, because he was basically doing an impression of his new comedy, doing an impression of Richard Pryor. And it was very inventive. You know, when I started out, that's what I was doing. So I was being Ben Elton. I mean, I watched some the other day on Instagram, and I felt physically sick, because they were doing Bill Burr, but it was all their material. Every action was Bill Burr. And it's like, what's strange is I didn't know Bill Burr's movements until I saw somebody else do them verbatim. And then, you know, I watched a comedian who was supporting a big name the other day, and a friend of mine was in the audience, and he went to the bar to get some drinks. And I turned around to my girlfriend at the time, and I went, watch his face when he gets back. So he got back, because there's support acts on stage, and we both knew the headliner, the big star. We knew him really well. So I said, watch his face when he gets back fast. So he gets back, hands her a drink, hands me a drink, and he sits there and goes, and then said his name, right? I'm not going to say it was, because then but it was like, I watched it, because every movement, and the thing, it's really weird. I didn't know. I mean, this is what's beautiful about impressionists. When you watch an impressionist do a celebrity, and it's exactly that. You go, oh yeah, Robert De Niro does do that.
Right.
You know, it's interesting, right? And that's why it's so hacky to go, you know, you're talking to me. But if you do a quirk that someone does that no one notice, you know, TV presenter who just flicks their ear and fills their hand, you go, oh yeah, they do that. But you can watch them 50 times do an interview and not know that Conan O'Brien leans back and does something, right? But when someone does it, you go, oh yeah, they magnify. So I watched this guy doing an impression of Bill Burr the other day, and you know, he was a relatively successful comedian, and the material was great. But it was all in the style of Bill Burr. So he was basically going, I love this guy so much, I'm going to write like him. And then I'm going to do all the intonation, all the movements, all the neck in on the punchline, all the quirks like that, because I'm so in awe of that person. Well, that's awful, because if you think about it, stealing one joke, which is a crime, is only one joke. Stealing someone's whole attitude is constant plagiarism.
Yeah. When I started, I was doing Howie Mandel. I'd worked with him. I was doing some shows at Universal Studios, and I'd worked with him. And so I just loved his approach. I loved his spontaneity. I loved his energy. And all of a sudden, I looked at some tapes of me, and I was like, "That's a little too much. A little too much."
Yeah,
Like,
a little too much. Little too much. I heard he was great. I only know him from America's Got Talent, but I think wanted a handbag. He had a bag that was a hand. Does that ring a bell?
yeah, he did. And then I think he did the rubber glove that he put over his face, and then he blew it up from inside, and it kind of blew up on his head or something. I didn't really like that part of it, but his quickness with the crowd and his likability, I thought was good. But then he does a lot of this stuff with his hands, and that's what I noticed myself doing. Was like,
Really?
those are Howie's hands. Put down the hands, Mike.
You should be handcuffed behind your back before you go on stage to force yourself to develop your own.
I can't be funny with other hands.
So you told me you had some questions, like a lot of questions.
Sure, yeah, we can keep going.
I want staying on the subject of persona. What is? I think in the book you say you should be able to label your persona in 3 words. What yours is, or we were trying to guess on what yours is. So we're curious what you would say your 3 words are.
Do you have a guess ready that you can say after I tell you my 3?
Oh, I wrote down, and you said this word maybe on a bit or a podcast. A cerebral freak show is a term you've used before. I don't know if that describes your persona, but some of your like material and like rap. I wrote boyish, like kiddish, high energy, quirky, and like cerebral.
Well, I think cerebral is a style of comedy, not a persona. So I would say that childlike, mischievous, intense. And you could go, isn't just mischievous the same as childlike? Not really, because an adult could be mischievous and a child can be not mischievous. A well-behaved child isn't mischievous. So childlike, there's a boyish energy to me. The Ricky Gervais quote I've got on the back of the book is the 3 words he used: intense and fragile honesty. Which is what a lovely sentence, right? And this isn't me crowbarring in the quote. My point is that's someone else who summed me up. Now, I don't think honest is a lot of comedy can be honest. So I think that's a broad one. I wouldn't use that as my word. But intense, fragile. I mean, fragile is a lovely thing to admit, to show someone. Vulnerability is a very important thing on stage. Even Sam Kinison screaming about wanting to drive a car into his ex-wife's house. That's vulnerability because she's hurt him. Yeah. That's not hate. Not hate. If you go, I hate this race of people I want to drive a car, well, that's just ignorance and hateful. But if you want to drive a car into an ex's house, you've been hurt by them. So as hateful as that may appear, there's vulnerability under the surface, which is, I've been hurt by a woman. So you can go, oh, it's misogyny, this and that. What he was showing was vulnerability. I've been hurt. So I would say for me, a childlike, mischievous, and intense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that from watching your set, I would say that's a good description. And yeah, and then the style is a different thing, which is how you present your take.
Yes, I mean, a style of material. I don't even haven't thought about what words to describe my style because it's not an exercise. So I have to practice what I preach, right? So I mean, I have ideas. My stuff's idea based. So on that list of things, of the main styles, I haven't even got idea based because, as I said, the list could be infinite. But you go observational. Jerry Seinfeld is observational. Chris Rock's opinionated. They're very different comedians, right? No doubt about that.
Yeah.
And Chris Rock wouldn't spend too long describing what it was like getting in the shower and having a hair on the wall that you try and shower down, whereas Seinfeld wouldn't tell you what he thinks too much, as in a controversial opinion. Chris Rock said a man is as faithful as his options. I mean,
it's good.
He got booed by the crowd for that, but he's basically saying, if you're in a job where you can get laid, you're going to get laid. And a man is as faithful as his options. I mean, wow. Wow.
How do you define style versus persona? Because you've made two.
Okay, so somebody whose persona is downtrodden, they're looking a bit, they're nervous, or they take the mic out, stand, they're not sure where to put the mic, they move it around and then put it down because they're indecisive, they're worried about being told off, they're looking, shy and low self-esteem. Let's say low self-esteem. So a persona would be low self-esteem, and the comedian who has low self-esteem might do self-deprecating style of comedy. So the style of comedy where the jokes tell on themselves, they're always, I'm no good in bed, my wife left me, I'm failing in life. This is a style. The style of comedy is self-deprecating. The persona is low self-esteem. So you can't say, how would you describe his persona? It's self-deprecating. It isn't. They're the things he says. To self-deprecate is a word, is a sentence. You self-deprecate. I'm no good in bed, right? The person who'd say they're no good in bed is someone who doesn't think much of themselves. So low self-esteem is a persona, self-deprecating is a style. And this is a really good question you just asked me, because once you detach the two things, you can realize that the things that make up your persona, persona's in movement. Persona's in the way you look at the audience. You know, when Dennis Leary drags the mic stand across the stage behind him with no regard for any damage it does to the floor or the mic stand, that says, I don't care about the world, I've given up, it can't be bothered. I don't care anymore. I don't care if the ozone layer's got a hole in it. I don't care about animals dying when I eat them. I don't care. He starts a song with "I'm an Arsehole," that record, the No Cure for Cancer. So it's no coincidence that a bloke who starts a song, a special with a song called "I'm an Arsehole," then drags the microphone on the floor because he's being an arsehole to the microphone. Well, this is very well thought out, and I wouldn't put him as one of the greats. He really became an actor and turned to that, and he's a great actor, or whatever. But the point is that is a really good example of persona, because dragging the microphone shows that you don't care, and then you do material that backs that up. But the thing is that movement, that I walk on excitable, that excitement is in my eyes, and then I do material that is mischievous, but I look mischievous. So when I have an idea about making old people think they've died when they actually haven't, that's a mischievous idea done by somebody who looks like they're mischievous. So the two go in harmony. But it's very much like, that one cartoon where the little boy's in bed and the mum says, and then the monster who lived under the little boy's bed ripped his head off and ate it. And the kid thinks to himself, this just doesn't sound believable coming from her, right? Now, that's a good example of one illustration encapsulating a chapter, which is finding your style. I've seen people try and be smooth and suave and sexy, and they're not. Their favorite comedian's sexy, and they want to be like them. We go, your charisma doesn't suit this. Right. I've seen comedians try and be really edgy, like, yeah, I did this and I killed someone and I don't care about anyone. Baby's dying. Who cares? And I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't believe this. I don't feel this. The look in your eyes got to match what you're saying. Otherwise, we don't believe it. And I've seen comedians, their favorite comedians, charming or vague. Eddie Izzard had a lot of, oh, yeah. When I started out, a lot of Eddie Izzard impersonations. But your charisma doesn't do that. First of all, you're copying someone, so that's already not authentic. It's already not authentic because you're copying someone. Creating a character isn't authentic. It's acting. You're going to play the part of the security guard who's coming to make an announcement about. That's acting, of course. You created something. But when you're doing a stand that's an extension of you and you're copying someone else, that's not authentic. You're the only you in the world. There's 8 billion people. There's only one you, and you're not even allowing yourself that privilege. So that's awful. But when your charisma doesn't suit the thing you're emulating, the audience don't buy it.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree. During the course of my career, I would often really love people like Bill Hicks or Tim Slagle, and the guys that are just really edgy and talking about real deep, angry things. And I was a goof and I was funny. So every time I would try to get into that stuff, it would just tank the rest of my act. It would tank that bit and the crowd would be confused. And I very quickly found out, I'm more goofy. I like my delivery is a lot more upbeat. And so that's a thing that I think a lot of comedians have to figure out.
So, yeah, by the way, that Bill Hicks was very big over here. Did you know that?
I didn't know that specifically, but he seems to be big worldwide.
Sure, but when he came over to England, we embraced him. We embraced him. Well, sorry, he's big worldwide now. He's dead. But what I'm saying is, when he came over here, he was embraced. He was embraced. Cool. But there's a friend of mine knows him or knew him, and Sean Hughes, who's sadly died about 6 years ago, a brilliant comedian. He died young, died 52. Nice. He knew Bill Hicks, and he said to Bill Hicks, "Why did you go out smoking?" And Bill went, "To see if Dennis would."
That was the accusation that Dennis was doing.
Yeah.
In a more popular way.
Yeah, 5 words, 6 syllables. To see if Dennis would. What a succinct way of saying that someone's emulating me. It's a great answer, right?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, just like all of his stuff was so yeah, and everyone wants to be that brilliant, and we're not all that brilliant, you know.